This week on RSBANDB Update, Housing of Parliament delivers more than meets the eye with real-world lore connections and new Moonstone Jewelry. Rewards aside, Housing of Parliament scratches the itch for a traditional RuneScape quest. Also this week, Necromancy ritual changes and Jagex is sold. This is RSBANDB Update, episode 973, recorded Thursday, February 15th, 2024. It's a hoot. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of RSBANDB Update this week, middle of February. Valentine's Day has just passed. We're not recording on Valentine's Day, so I'm not inconveniencing anybody for that. But Tanis, you're here for Quest Week. Welcome as you are each and every week.
Thank you, Shane.
Have you have fun with some of our blue, furry, not furry, feathery creatures?
I mean, you didn't tell me what you did for Valentine's Day, but sounds like you had a more interesting time than I did. No. I was updating on Valentine's Day. I was updating PHP code from 2005, and Zerdones is probably having a conniption right now when he hears that. Right?
Ooh, talk dirty to me, Shane.
I'll show you some for loops later of what was in there.
Boy.
Of what was in there before.
Boy.
But Zerdones is also here for Quest Week, of course.
Hi there, glad to be back.
Zerdones, resident clan quester and lore aficionado here at Update, and also joining us to talk about the owls who's going to have a hoot of the time, as you said, Avernick. You said it was going to be a hoot of a time this week. I appreciated that.
Nice.
I wish I could come with more owl puns, but I feel like they all go downhill from there.
Yeah, that's fair. Avernick, of course, longtime quester, RuneScape player, probably most known for getting the Ark into poll when that was brought into game way back in was that 2017 or 2016?
I think the poll was 2015, but yeah, it came out 2016.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
You pleased with how they did that?
Yeah, I think that it sits in a decent spot. Do I wish we spent more time there putting infinite content into the area? Yes, but
that we got some of the other island chains, maybe. Yeah. But,
yeah, eventually. But ED1's great too, and so.
But of course,
Shane just wants to colonize them and put everyone to work and the goods back to his factories.
Remember for the Gielenor's 20th birthday, one of the mini quests, they had this new environment that looked very much Eastern Lands themed.
Yeah.
Yep,
So
I remember
that's
that.
kind of what I'm leading into there with that. Mm-hmm. But we're here to talk about Housing of Parliament, of course. And before we get too far down the track, I just want to thank our experienced tier Patreon members for allowing us to do here what we do each and every week. It is without these guys that RSBANDB Update would become impossible. So this week I'd like to thank Amos Reed, Andrew C., Drama Free, Jason S., Jesse W., Kesky, Ricky A., Rippeth, Runestar, and The Naked Captain. Big, huge thank you to those people. More about our Patreon offerings a little bit later in the podcast. Alrighty. Full show notes, update.show. Discord is at update.show/Discord, and the friends chat is at BitsBytes. Do we have a quorum here to enter Parliament and commence debate on the quest?
Aye.
This is where I wish I knew parliamentary procedure.
Yeah, I don't know what I was actually supposed to say, but
that works.
Sustained.
No,
Make it so.
Honestly, the quorum for Update is probably 2 people, I'd say, to make decisions about something.
We'll do it
when it comes to the show. But Housing of Parliament, new short quest courtesy of Mod Luma, who is featured lead on this, started initially as a game jam project, and we dive into this quest, and there's really not too much to say on this quest, is there, in terms of where it lands in the grand scheme of the storyline, or maybe there is. I don't know. We'll have to see what happens with this as we go through the storyline. But it requires 54 necromancy, which isn't too bad, I don't think.
No, that's pretty easy.
Yeah, you get that in a day if you're just starting off. So this quest, I think, is best summarized as a small, fun little fetch quest where you go and you clean up an owl's house, and then you bring them some food and figure out what kind of food they like to eat, and garnish it with broken glass.
Well, it would be with sand.
I hope I picked out the glass. If I didn't, I should have told my character to do that.
Yeah,
I probably should have.
I think we did. So this quest when we got here, I mean, I feel like the benchmark of what we would say, is a quest versus is a mini quest has gotten blurred over the years. I feel like we can definitely put this one in the quest category. Do you guys agree with that?
I would agree with that. I think it's a very kind of traditional quest. Like it's a quest in kind of like the 2006 era tradition, I think.
Oh, that's interesting.
A long time ago.
Yeah, because it's not very long. It's not very lore deep, but it's cute. It's funny. It's got personality. You do a little bit of skilling. You do a little bit of wandering around the world, talking to people. You do a little bit of go get random items.
That was the most 2006 thing to me, was the go get random items.
Yes.
That's true.
Go get random items that
have
never been used.
Items,
anything.
you go to like Mauritania and find a specific snail or things like that. Would be a more like recent
worm.
And if this was then a prerequisite for just random ass quest going forward,
that would make much sense. I don't think, unless the owl is needed for something, right?
Well, no, it wouldn't make sense because we're talking 2006 quest, right?
Oh, you're referring to like
how it used to work.
You're referring to like Mod Stew's thing from last week. Yeah. Fair enough.
I think that it's no, it won't be required going forward. It will be. It's thoroughly itself and quaint and a nice little,
almost like it's in a bottle.
One of those things in a bottle. I agree.
Yep, very much.
I mean, it starts
and that's actually an interesting thing. Can we call this a bottle quest? Because
100%.
Like the environment was all there, and obviously the Moonstone is new.
The point that it hit me as bottle quest was when they asked you to get like what was it, the hourglass sand, and you get that and you put it in the trough, and the trough is fully white. And like that's why they asked you to get to the sand, because they had a white model to put in this trough.
Yeah, that's fair. And it's an interesting thing, and I'm gonna be that person and say, that I got the list of items beforehand and I acquired them beforehand. I might have even used the Grad Exchange on this. You do have to go and talk to the person at the pet shop in order to find out what the owls eat. You can't just immediately complete the quest when you're right here.
Mm-hmm.
I like that.
Right, and you remember from back in the day what the hallmarks of quests were. It was that world hopping thing where you would go, practically everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like one small favor took it to the extreme and made it a joke. But yeah, lots of quests were like that.
Yeah, and that's actually funny you mentioned one small favor, because based on how this was mentioned here about the food, this would have been the perfect starting point for one small favor too, if such a thing were to exist.
One weird food thing that just spiraled.
Yeah, exactly. But obviously, that's not the scope of a game jam project. So we can see it from that perspective there. So I thought that was neat, and the thing that stood out to me more in this quest than anything else, and it's kind of like a general related thing. Mm-hmm. I was walking through this place, and I just felt like there's so much promise here. Why did we not go back after, the necromancy stuff finished? Did we really blow through, to like level 95 necromancy and doing alpha versus omega quicker than everybody else, that we were done with it by October? And there was no point to be in or should there have been more content in post necromancy? Is kind of what I'm getting at with this, and that's one thing this quest made me think of.
Well, Hero Pass happened. How could we not have been all around
the important things?
No, I understand. I think that it was a conflict between what we were getting before Necromancy, and the Necromancy was already a big behemoth in the development cycle, like year beforehand or so.
Right.
That kind of like came in, and what was happening before wasn't totally aligning with what was happening when Necromancy came.
Like the Zemmeregal Fort stuff.
Yeah,
obviously.
Right. And so they wanted to like finish what they were doing before Necromancy made its mark, and then maybe coming up, like there's more.
Right, and that's the thing is, we don't know. We don't know what's on the way. The next storyline could center around some of the residents of for all we know.
If anything, I would be merging, I think, but
right, hence the whole Zemregal and Vorkap business.
Right, but maybe just like didn't totally align.
Yeah,
but this is definitely why when I saw that City of Quest series category, is like what we got on Monday was definitely exactly what I thought would be something that would add maybe many more of that, maybe hopefully more.
Exactly, and that's the reason I mentioned that, is because I want more of that sort of content in game around and around Necromancy. Well, because I feel like our story's not done yet.
Well, specifically, I think is really good for telling those kinds of stories, because the whole narrative conceit around is it's a city made up of individuals, so we have a lot of opportunity to just focus in on a character. Yeah, we can go to any kind of character and talk to them and see their story. But then B, it's also very narratively about characters coming and going, so it doesn't feel weird to suddenly say, "Oh, hey, there's a new person here in and we're going to go and talk to them and learn all their life stories."
Yeah, right. It's about dealing with whatever their story is. So it's not like we're imposing,
right?
And yeah,
and you know that I think that's an interesting thing, especially when you put it in the context of this quest, because isn't that what players have been asking for years? Is more individual, I'd say players, I mean quest players. We've wanted these sorts of things where we could, really dive into the lore of a specific RS character, and, whether that be through something like a mini quest, like they did with the fort, or, a series of quests like they did with the fort, or, even something here like this bottle quest. I think you start summing that up and you start painting a picture of a way of delivering, just that lore cherry on top, as I like to say. And I think that kind of did this well, even though it's owls, right?
Even though it's owls. Well, owls are nice.
Yeah.
Owls are cute.
Yeah.
I mean, in real life, they're very much not, but
no, they're vicious. Don't stick your fingers near an owl beak. Yeah.
They're awful creatures in real life, but in fiction, they're cute.
Yeah. And that kind of goes with what we were talking about with this. We were trying to, point the finger, where does the owl reference come to in and why is the skill pet there, and then why this quest? And I think it was a combination of both you, Avernick, and Zerdones, who came up with some ancient mythology on this.
I mean, mine was a quick Google, and I was like, oh yes, owls are important in Native American culture to death, symbolize death, and
if you dream of one, right?
Right. Yes.
Yeah. And when you extract that out to that kind of paints that picture. And, that also fits in the MO of Maud Rowley, who was largely in charge around the story surrounding necromancy. So,
it feels like he constantly draws from like real life stuff. I mean, Maud Rowley was pretty much lead lore guy on archaeology, and look, they really injected a lot of like Greek stuff and Stereodomism and all that. And then they try to like get not to like to the point where like everything that is Ceredominus stuff is Greek. It just has a direct analogous thing to a Greek thing.
There's aspects of it that kind of
it's inspiration, or like I think
it has a feeling of being Greek inspired.
Yes, so it's something to draw on, something that makes it feel familiar. Like you see something, you're like, and you as a player can see like that looks Greek. In this game, that means Ceredominus. Like you can like put like puzzle together, and it all makes sense because those are aesthetics we kind of identify, like recognize.
Yeah, that kind of visual identity is very useful.
I So
thematic
I think
identity, I should say.
So putting those kinds of real life things in there, like you can like draw on them and like slowly put together a picture. And the way that this game is put together, those real life elements is its own. And then hopefully out of that, like original stuff branches off, like this quest. Like I'm sure like the owl stuff for the skill was like, got to figure out a skill pet, right? And sort of that. But then like, okay, now we have an owl and it's associated necromancy. How do we build that out? So like it's going to branch out.
And then why do we have the owl in game, right? That sort of
thing.
So, okay. Are we thinking of any other, mythological connections here that could be with the owl and its presence in at this point?
Yeah, there's one other from ancient Greek mythology, and this ties into the Greek story of Persephone, which, for those who don't know, the short version is Hades, god of the underworld, got really lonely one night, decided he needed a girlfriend, so he came up and he kidnapped Persephone, who was the daughter of the goddess Demeter, or Demeter, I'm not sure how you're supposed to pronounce it. But she got really upset, and she got really sad because her daughter was gone, and long story short, that's why we have winter. So the story goes. But there's a minor character in this myth. Right, exactly. Well, that wasn't a thing for the ancient Greek gods.
I like that better than planetary axis and rotation, mind you.
It's certainly got more romance to it. Well, I say romance.
Okay.
But there's a minor character in this story called Ascalaphus, who is the person who discovered what happened to Persephone and told Demeter what had happened, and she was so angry she turned him into an owl. Because when you're a god, you can do that.
Nice.
There's a couple of variations of how exactly that happened, but he always ends up getting turned into an owl and being a sad omen to mankind.
Hence the
messenger of grief.
That makes total sense, because that's what the pet's name is.
The pet's name is Omen, yep.
I've totally forgot about that until you mentioned that there right now.
And the post-quest content for this has you searching for 14 owls. One of them is named Aska, and one of them is named Laphus.
And the connection there? I'm sorry.
Put them together, Ascalaphus.
Oh, damn. Okay. Okay, so we're on the right path then, connecting this to some form of mythology.
I think so. There's definitely connections here.
I didn't do the owl hunting. Sorry, not owl hunting. Owl spotting, let's just say. Post quest yet. Owl hunting would be an entirely different thing, of course.
And illegal, I think. Yeah. I don't think you can hunt that, Shane.
Does have hunting laws? I don't know about that.
I don't know.
True. Someone, if you're an maybe you already have been hunted.
Wow.
Oh boy.
So the thing that I'm seeing now, and this is always good doing this on the podcast here like this, and we don't do too much pre-show. We just kind of gather the general points. We knew we were going to talk about mythology. We knew we were going to talk about what happened in the quest and the rewards. But I like this quest a lot more now, because I was doing this quest, and it goes back to that same feeling where I wish that could be so much more after Necromancy, and I realized, our content strategy discussion we had about Necromancy fitting in between the two chapters of 4 and 3 there, and now this, and it's like, okay, so it felt kind of empty, but at the same time, this quest, a Game Jam project, delivered to us, now making these references like this. Huh. Okay. That makes me feel a lot better about the quest, by the way. Because I need to be 100% real with you guys. The quest was perfect in terms of execution and how it was delivered. I just didn't know exactly what its ultimate end goal was. Is it to just be a fun little fetch quest, or am I should I take more from this? And I'm glad that I'm actually able to take more of this right now. So I'm pleased. I'm pleased.
I think one of my favorite parts of the quest was in terms of what it contributes to and all that, is that afterwards, like, there's so many, not just the owls you spot, there's so many more owls in the city. And that was something I also really liked with Fort 4 and 3, is like you build up the fort, and like now you have guards, now they're out, and then you do Dead and Buried, and now they're outfitted with crossbows because you have the fletching person. And I feel like building out like a city or your fort or whatever in these quests, like having these additions, like feels like you're contributing. Like,
it feels like you're having an impact.
Yeah,
in a small way, your actions matter to the world.
And
I really like that when I was going around.
And an example of that, like there's still conspicuous looking thieving stalls there that are probably going to be put to use at one point or another in the future. So plenty of things still kind of left to expand outwards on that.
Yeah, I think was very consciously designed with there's room to add more stuff later, even if we don't specifically have plans for what to do.
I forget who was saying it.
I think that's good.
Yeah,
that's a good thing.
Yeah,
I don't know if we said it on the show or if it was something that somebody told me. When Necromancy came out, why put it in such a big city? Well, now you have your answer to that.
Yeah, and I think even more importantly, like it's so big. And there's room for like these. I'm not gonna say like it was like very small, like these like small updates. Like they don't have to be like a medium sized like POF sort of update. They could put to the city. You could add a person in a building and give them a story and something, and like that contributes to
absolutely.
Yeah. There's enough footprint already going on.
There's enough room in for even a second skill.
Oh boy,
sailing.
That doesn't have to just be oh god, that's thinking small.
Yeah, that's got to be.
Well, although you're right. We already have sailing. We never need to talk about it again.
I just had to throw that out there, but overall, do you guys feel better about the quest now than when you were doing it, or did you feel good about it from the very beginning?
I felt good about it from the beginning. I liked it for what it was.
I was probably on your train where Shane, where while I was doing it, I was like, this is fine. But the more I thought about it, the more I was like, this really fleshes out what's going on.
And Tanis, I'm going to say something, and then but I want to hear what you have to say on this first.
I thought it was fine. Like I didn't really change in my opinion in any way. I thought it was just it's a little quest, right? Like a little game jam quest. The only thing with me was like through talking and figuring out that there was a mythological connection. That was cool because the whole time I was wanting to see like a crow or a raven.
Right, like because that's what we, in Western culture typically associate as with death.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really, that's the only thing I can say. Everything else was like totally just RuneScape-y.
Yeah.
And I remember seeing snails. I'm like, huh. I'll be going to Fort Myer. I'll be damned. Okay. Just little things like that.
And
so,
the worms from the gnome ball court.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
And then the other beetle or whatever it was from the pet shop.
Shop. Yeah.
I'm gonna get the landmine diffusal kit out now.
Okay.
Brace yourselves.
One of the things that people were associating this quest with, in some people at least, not necessarily everybody, but some people were associating this quest with prior to launch, was that, wow, Jagex is giving us a game jam quest for our February key content drop.
Oh no.
Really?
Yeah.
That's all they can do? A short game jam quest? That's the February content drop?
You didn't prep us for this in pre-show.
And, well, there's a reason why I didn't. I wanted to get you guys, legit immediate reactions to it. So there's that, and, the January graphical updates and the March combat update. and people are saying, where's the content in the game? But at the same time, yeah, this quest might have took, only 20 minutes to do with a guide and 5 minutes, or sorry, without a guide and 5 minutes if you had a guide. At the same time, if you really read into it and you really look at what's happening around the city of with this quest, you see why it's able to actually be called a content drop. Mm-hmm. Because, dare I say it, maybe this quest has more meat to it than some of the Fort 4 and 3 ones did.
That might be a stretch. That's a
stretch. Come on.
I mean, you're trying to provoke us.
Well, here's the thing, dude. I mean, at the end of the day, you guys do quests because you like quests. What's in it? I look at what's in it for me. And there was
a lot of people look at it that way. The majority of people, probably upwards of 75%. Yeah.
And when you're looking at Fort 4 and 3, there was a lot in it for me. There was not really anything in it for me.
Yeah, fair
enough. Other than I knew I had to do it.
Fair enough. Should we just go on to the rewards then, since we're talking about other stuff you can pull out of this quest?
Oh, you didn't want to talk around that landmine you just dropped?
I mean,
drop mic and off stage.
That was a very
the reason I did that was because I know you guys are not in that camp, but I know a lot of other players are.
I've 100% seen the distress you're alluding to. Mm-hmm. I think that I have a lot to say about this if you really want to go into it.
Let's, because
do it.
Because what I see is it's like we said last week, and just a brief summary for you, Avernick, since you weren't here for that, is that for people who have maxed, have 120 all, have comp, trim, the whole shebang like that, they have nothing left to do in game. But for folks who are, maxing, people who are still mid-level, there's a whole game out there for you to still explore, which are undoubtedly the biggest chunk of people in the game who are not that end game group. And that's, where that sentiment comes from, is that the end gamer sentiment has become very loud, that I think a lot of people are immediately thinking that there's just not much out there. And that's why I said, well, you might be thinking that coming into this quest, but after you do this quest, and if you look around, it's as much of a content drop as anything else.
Sure. I do think some of the criticism would be around it's just 2 game jam updates and some QOL thrown together. Mm-hmm. Which it is, but the only time that game jam updates are going to get the QA time and all that is going to be when there's a lull, right, in content coming out. And so that's why this came out, and absolutely mods that make content in game jam to come out that's their hope, is that there's a lull where we can slot in what we get, and their passion stuff gets to come out. And I think that Mod Luma really gets RuneScape quests, like Twilight of the Gods has some really great gameplay sections, and she's done stuff like Aftermath and Battle for N3, which is kind of filling in those story gaps and things like that. So I think this is good content.
100% agree.
You could definitely draw the criticism it's game jam content.
Right.
Is that a flag against it?
And I think a lot of people are doing that, and they're saying, why are you giving us this bottle quest as a headline piece of content?
Mm-hmm. I mean, look, yeah, okay, good tennis. Yeah.
Well, I was just gonna say, look, at a certain level, you can't don't piss down my leg and tell me it's raining either, right? Mm-hmm. So we can't pretend everything's fine. They're producing lots of great content.
We don't know. We
have a road, but hold on. To me, the story isn't that this is what we're getting. The story is, why are we getting this? Oh, well, that's a really interesting question.
We're filling that gaps.
That started last fall.
Yeah,
and that's why we're here.
I think we're in a very reactionary development state. Maybe things are actually developing for long term at this point. But maybe 2-3 months ago, we were very reactionary to like, yeah, like Hero Pass obviously didn't hit, Forecast didn't hit, things like that. So like they're reacting to putting out maybe game jam projects, because like players always say, why aren't you putting out the stuff JMods are working on and not the stuff you ordain is correct. We're getting stuff like the Christmas event where like mods were taking off what they were currently working on. Like we had like Mod Ramen working on the Christmas event, who was in August saying, I'm working on the most intimidating thing of my career, or the craziest thing or whatever. And then they got pulled off that for a month or so to put on the Christmas event after the Halloween event was so lambasted. Mm-hmm. So like we're having like jitters and stalls and like the content development to like react to players.
And it makes sense why they would have put ramen on the Christmas event, because Violet is Blue is one of the most revered.
Yeah, you want to get someone like which has good community sentiment and like and understands what they're putting out and things like that have in the past like resonated well. So that makes sense. But like we're seeing the reaction, like the follow on now is like, yeah, now there's going to be some gaps in content because they pulled devs to like make the Christmas event, or they're like maybe some of the this one I don't even know is like some of the reaction to some of the Fort content was like, this could have been one update after 3 updates or whatever. So maybe they're pushing back some content, and like maybe instead of releasing a quest and a boss, they're going to release the quest and the boss together, which does mean it comes out in the second month. The second content would have come out, not the first month, right? Because like it's not going to be ready earlier, it's going to be ready later. So like we're seeing gaps.
Yeah, and
they're filling it with game jam stuff,
right?
And that's fine. That's what we're asking for, right?
Yes,
technically.
And see, this is the thing, is that we and I don't know if this came across on the podcast the past few weeks when we talked about it. It might have sounded like we were doomsaying or something on the podcast a week and a bit ago, but I don't think that was our goal. I think our goal was to try and paint a realistic picture of what was happening there. And this week we're seeing what, the follow through on that feels like when we get content that was, able to be produced and brought forward in that time period we are in.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's one thing we were talking about on the pre-show was like we were all like appreciating archaeology, and like that had like the showman's finish on it, whatever. That was a delayed skill. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
That was delayed. Was it 2 months, I think, or 3 months? 3. December or January to 3. March. It was to March. Yeah. So like the response to we don't think that the content is up to par or whatever is to push things further back, which means we're going to hear about it later, we're going to get it later, and they're going to try to fill in the gaps with what they got.
That's a very logical sense, Avernick.
Yeah.
I do wish that the majority of the people who are saying we have some sort of issue could see it that way.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think like Avernick is absolutely right that I think we're seeing the devs in a reactionary phase, but I think we're also seeing the community in kind of a reactionary phase.
Yep.
Because I said this last week on the show, the players and especially the endgame players are looking for a reason to be excited, and this update isn't very exciting.
And I am a quester, and this update made me excited.
Like, don't get me wrong. I liked this update. I liked the quest. I liked the rewards. I liked the changes that got made. Is it the tentpole update I wanted to hear after everything that's happened in the last couple of months? Maybe I would have liked it to be a little bigger. Maybe it's not as exciting as maybe it could be.
It's not pointing to the future. It is itself. It is solidly itself.
Yep.
Which I don't think is how a large amount of the community is judging content right now. I think they're judging it by what does this mean for like the summer update or whatever.
Right. And it's also doesn't help that you have this alternate reality over there called old school RuneScape that's able to, put out a roadmap 2 times a year, and they stick to it.
Because they've decided that they're going to do a year or dare I call it a season of Varlamore, and they're like, we can confidently say we're going to make Varlamore part 1, part 2, eventually part 3 or whatever. So like they're kind of at a different stage where they're like about to release part 1 of a thing, where I think we're gearing up to part 1 of a thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think
putting it.
I was reflecting on this, like one thing that sort of stuck in my head. I was reflecting on my impression of the update as a whole, and I remember thinking back to something Mod Jax said a couple of years ago now about how the way players think about quests has shifted, and in his estimation at that time, players don't want quests like what's a good example of like Witch's House?
Oh, okay.
Witch's House, for example. Just a very small quest, not a lot to it. Or, I mean, even something like this, where it's a small quest. It's just kind of cute. It has some mid-level rewards. There's not a lot to it. His estimation is players want quests that are big event and pull updates. Things like As an Address Quest, City of Santistan, Battle of Furin 3. And I think he's right, and I think that's part of why the community in general is so down on this week's update. I think part of that is how the update frequency has changed over the years. Like, I think, again, I don't want this to come off like I don't like the content we got this week. I do. I like it a lot. But it would feel more exciting if I knew that next week we were getting something similar.
Sure. I think almost it's
which is something like RuneScape 3 can't do realistically.
Right. Two things that made me think of was, one, the way you described quests was like, okay, that's probably why a lot of the Furin 3 quests didn't hit, is because they're not just using quests as events anymore. Again, like it probably before the 6th Age, it's more like we're using quests as like small things now. In the 6th Age, there are big things, and back to 4 and 3, sometimes they're small, sometimes they're bigger.
But remember when we were in that 6th Age period with, like the likes of
everything had
As an Address Quest and Extinction and City of Santistan and all that.
Yeah.
We got complaints that there were only, 4 or 5 quests in a year.
Sure.
Yes.
And last year we got 16. You can debate which ones count. But the other thing that your description made me think of was that I feel like we're still saying we're getting monthly updates, and that was like the cadence that we, I guess, kind of agreed upon between company and player.
Yeah.
But it feels, especially like last year, maybe even the year before, like we've gotten to more like 2 updates a quarter. So like there's always like an off month.
Right.
It's like two out of 3 months there's bigger updates, and then one is smaller.
And I think that's exacerbated by Modkeeper's letter, where he said that they're still committed to monthly content drops.
Right. There's always like a down month. That way we get into this cycle again, where it's like, what's next?
Right. As in, people expect that tentpole content every month, but I don't think you can do that. You're right.
They don't do 12 a year, I don't think. I think it's closer to like 8.
Yeah.
Yeah. I would support that.
And again, that comes down to managing players' expectations. And this is so weird because none of us anticipated we were going here, and this is because of my my landmine defusal kit that led us here.
Jane.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
So
no, it's good stuff to talk about, especially because like last week you guys might have been talking about it in more like a theoretical. We got the newsletter.
Oh, it was very theoretical last week.
But now we've gotten the update of February. This is it. What does that mean? I think not only are we in a down, like the down month was January with the graphical update, which we're also Game Jam. But I think we're in like a down quarter, just maybe more reactionary than so. So we'll see what comes after March.
The thing that in summary for you, Avernick, and people who didn't listen to last week's, was that the conclusion we came to is that Jagex is not ready to share what's beyond March, or it doesn't exist yet, and they're not confident that it will pan out.
I think it's in progress. I'm going to believe stuff's in progress.
It has to be, right? I mean, you don't have a
sure you put it out there that doesn't exist yet, but maybe not to the point where you can say something. But I also think that I would wish that I could know that magical marketing formula what is the right time to announce things, because then we can put that out there and say expect it 3 weeks before, whatever the number is. I'm sure there's studies and sciences on it.
Well, that's always kind of been Jagex's problem over the last decade or so, is announcing things too early or too late.
There's crazy scenarios where, like, we knew Necromancy vaguely was coming. Well, specifically was coming 8 months before, vaguely more than a year. But then you have things like Azanaja's Quest, which they revealed the week before. It's a weird range.
Right, and I think you get away with that with Azanaja's Quest because it was a lore person's quest.
It was, yeah.
It was, but they were also announcing that week, like, oh, we're starting the Elder God Wars series, and or like in earnest post Desperate Measures and Anachronia stuff.
Right, and we haven't had a big quest like that, a big quest event, since Twilight of the Gods.
Yeah, I think Twilight Gods is definitely the biggest. I think Succession's up there, but like Twilight Gods for sure supersedes it. Because that's kind of setting Twilight Gods is setting more the state of the game for maybe the next next 10 years if you go.
Yeah, and Succession was that that brief period where
Succession's more like maybe the next couple of years.
Yeah. And
but,
see that I think the way we bring this then back to housing of Parliament is that this is showing what that content is going to look like in that slow off period, and I don't think it's then fair for people to be shouting from the rooftops that there's some immediate problem, because it's clear from this update that Jagex is still very capable of delivering content and a quest, and even rewards surrounding the quest that enrich an area and multiple playstyles with it. And that is the hallmark of a good quest.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen it a couple places where people are like, good quest, probably a bad time for it, but unfortunately, this is the time when stuff would get like QA work is when there's a lull. But like this is like Slime Quest of like it's decent, it's good.
This is better than the Slime Quest.
Okay,
it's
much,
I'll
think of a better example. Oh god, I didn't know we were Slime Quest haters here.
No, we don't hate any quest. We don't hate any quest.
But like, it's a small, quaint quest that would do perfectly fine on its own if there was a quest the month before and a quest the month after. But because it's on its own, it's getting judged differently.
Yeah,
that's a good way of putting it.
You have to think about it less in context for its own. But the context matters for generally how the community feels. So it goes both ways.
I agree, and that's probably a good point to move on the rewards there. And I didn't, I said, I didn't intend to go into this discussion here, but I feel like it was important to do because there's just been, so many, RuneScapes in trouble, and I feel bad that we, might have contributed to that last week based on the reaction I saw.
I wouldn't say that last week's show was anywhere near some things are going to, but
I apparently drew in audience members on YouTube with last week's episode who thought that. But in any case,
views are views. No.
Yeah, we do podcasts for the podcast. Okie dokie. One quest point. 20,000 Necromancy XP at level 54 is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
It's a solid reward for where it is.
You remember there was that discussion as well that happened once upon a time that said, a long time ago, quests were very wary of giving big, XP drops, and they kind of moved away from that, and we saw that with the City of quest, and we're seeing this again here. So good on Jagex for making the XP reward meaningful.
Feels pretty in line. Like Spirit of War at level 65 is 45,000, so 54, 20,000. Pretty good.
Yeah, good.
Yep.
In line.
Also, the 450th quest point. Did you guys get anything good from your magic dice?
No.
No.
I got, I think I got Pajama Pants.
Rune Dragon Mat.
I got a golden thread.
Ooh,
that's actually interesting. That's a little more interesting.
Yeah, because it makes the the tier 82 non-degradable ranged armor, so that's neat.
Yeah, the Robin.
Sports is sports.
But we also get a new Felipe Carnelian location here in the city.
Felipe has relocated finally after
all master clues.
Well, I teased this in pre-show. I have things. There has been theory crafting. Mm-hmm. So I too once thought as you did, oh, this is going to piss off the Kluers, something awful. But no, the Kluers are a resourceful breed. And I went onto the Clue Chasers Discord and I was clicking around to see what they were saying. And apparently the strat now is reset Gower Quest.
What?
Because Gower Quest does a weird thing. It's unusual. Unlike any other replayable quest, when you reset it, it takes back the quest point it gives you.
What?
So
the meta strat.
That's going to be patched. You just said it's going to be patched. You've ruined it.
Well, it might be patched.
Well, we have until the next quest at least, right?
Right. Like, if it's not patched, it's not going to be a thing after the next quest.
Yeah.
And I was looking at some of the best in slot presets, and I think it's mostly an issue for masters. I'm not sure off the top of my head when exactly Philippe shows up in Treasure Trail tiers. But the master slot the master presets are pretty packed. Hard and mediums are fine. I think he's in hards. Hards would probably be okay, but you would have to lose an extra power burst to fit in the bracelet. Mm-hmm. Because that's the best way to get to him now is the new bracelet, which we'll go into in the next section.
Yeah, the reflecting
which is teleport right next to him.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it cannot be added to Passage of the Abyss. So it is
that an oversight, I wonder?
I think it's because all of the mechanics of Passage of the Abyss are you need to add a certain number of charges of jewelry to it.
Okay.
But the bracelet doesn't have charges. It's infinite charge. Mm-hmm. So it might be that they'll update Passage in a future update so that you can add more things to it. Or they might just leave it and say, nope, figure it out. Hard to say.
I had no idea that this was even a thing, so thank you for bringing this up.
That is an amazing level of game breaking.
It is impressive theory crafting. Props to the Clue Chasers people. I'm glad that you are contained where you can not do any damage to the world.
Does that not screw them over for the other Master Clue where they have to go talk to the Gower brothers?
No, because you can talk to Paul Gower in the farm.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. Yep.
Gotcha. That might be better than having to go to the Altar of Life, even. They might have already done that, like had it reset.
Life Altar is actually okay because I think Life Altar is on the quest cape.
Oh.
And if it's not on the quest cape, you do get the Disc of Returning from the quest, which can teleport you to the Life Altar.
I think it's on the quest cape, now that you mention it.
Let me pull that up.
This was really the biggest implication of the new Philippe location is clues, obviously.
Oh yeah, forget the 10,000 XP you get from doing it and whatnot, right?
Yeah, I thought it was fun that he said he's like friends with Frank. I was like, oh nice, Frank has friends.
Yeah, yeah, that was cute. No, so Life Altar is not on the quest cape. Quest cape teleports you to behind the scenes.
Oh, okay.
So close enough.
So it's a couple of extra clicks through that, but the Disc of Returning used from a bank safe zone will teleport you basically directly to the Gowers.
Gotcha. Interesting.
All right. Well,
learn some trivia.
The other way that you could deal with this, existing Kluers, it doesn't work for them, but the other way you could do it is because the way Philippe's mechanics work are you need to claim pre-existing lamps before he'll move. So he won't actually move to if you haven't claimed his lamp in Czar City.
Well, that's an easy way around it.
Could you do that even earlier and get a better location than Czar City? Or is Czar City already good because you need the Zokal Zode to get to that?
Yeah, Czar City is probably the best location because Tokal Zode will take you right there.
Right, and you already need that item.
Yeah, this strategy won't work for most existing hardcore Clue people because you need to claim the first few lamps up to Czar City lamp. You need to claim those for the Master Quest Cape, which was previously a best in slot preset item because of all the teleports.
Nice.
Until January of last year when that got changed.
Speaking of Master Quest Cape, I don't know if you guys affects you at all, but I've lost mine because the requirement went way up after this quest.
Oh, what did they? Yeah. What was added to it?
Find all the owls, which
okay.
requires 120 necromancy for the last one to spawn in.
Yep.
And previously, Master Quest Cape was only 101 to find all of the residents.
So it is a Master Quest Cape now needs 120 necromancy.
Yep, I do not have
that. Yep. Big requirement jump. And also requires Thalmond, but that got a grace period.
Time gated, yeah.
Yeah, it is time. Yep, it's time gated, which we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah, let's get into the jewelry then, because I feel like that's the other big thing about this quest that a lot of people aren't seeing. So you get one Moonstone for completing the quest. There was another one in Thalmond's shop on Wednesday, and we don't know how long that's going to be rotated out for, but it was only 4,000 GP there, so I snagged a second one when I was able to.
The community guessed the price wrong.
What were they thinking it was going to be?
Well, on the G, it was 10 million.
Right.
So I think the assumption was like, that's how rare it is. I mean, it's going to be at least in the millions.
The first couple days, it was that rare.
Yeah.
Because before Thalmond, the only way you could get it was from rituals or from ghostly implings.
Right.
And it seems quite rare from both of those. I mean, ghostly implings are already pretty rare.
Yep.
But we're going to find out how rare it is this weekend, because I'm going to be doing a bunch of necromancy for double XP.
I will be too, because I need that 120 necromancy for the Master Quest.
Yeah. My anecdotal experience, I did 6 million XP of powerful communion rituals, and I did not get a single stone.
I think I did 3 million XP and didn't get anything.
I got 3 tomes, 3 or 4 tomes, no moonstones.
So the way you're going to want these is definitely from the shop whenever they come up then.
Yeah, I mean, I think the shop price is based around no player ever needs more than 4 of these ever. Maybe in the future that changes based on if there's more updates to jewelry, but like there's no charges. It's not consumable. It's
fair
forever around. So like there's going to be, the stock's always going to be increasing over time.
Yeah, it's you need 4 of them for the jewelry, and then it's just invention fodder.
Yeah.
Yep.
So before we get into the actual jewelry, we should talk about Thalmond's shop. That was added this week as well, just a little bit south of the smithy there. And you can see Thalmond if you've completed Killy Row. Today's stock, as of recording. Or
Wednesday's stock.
It's only active for 1 day. Yeah.
Okay, right. It's only 1 day a week.
Yep, 1 day a week.
That's when the Moonstone was there. Also, powerful necroplasm, 50 of them, 100 impure essence.
Not noted
per stone.
Yeah, not noted.
Which is just dumb. That's just.
It's going to be noted in the future. That's going to be a patch note.
Okay.
Yeah, I hope so.
And 1 ensouled cloth.
Mm-hmm.
Other things you'll be able to buy from here. Include ensouled bars, greater ensouled cloth and thread, all the runes, the necroplasms, a few mementos, some powerful ghostly ink, though it looks like it's going to be a profit to buy those when they're up, because you're actually going to be able to make money off that. Flaming skulls, ghostly impling jars, and extreme necromancy flasks. So, it's not as, powerful as the traveling merchant, but it's definitely something you want to pop by, every Wednesday and, see what they have.
Yeah, it's good, especially for mid-levels.
While you're working your way through.
Yeah, you can get some higher tier materials pretty easily. They won't get you super far. It's pretty low numbers that's available, but it's a nice little bonus.
Yeah.
Like Iron Man, like you might that. If it takes you a month or two, you might not need to go do like some subjugation grind or something.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I was going to say. Is that you could just stack some of that greater cloth up over time, and then that's the story behind that one. So
that too.
But okay, so that's interesting. So be sure to check there every Wednesday.
Yeah, and especially if you need Master Quest Cape, because you have to talk to him 7 times.
Oh, you do?
Yep.
Do you just have to talk to him, or you have to buy something?
You have to talk to him. He tells you a little story.
In the very initial dialogue, this week was a little not as obvious because he's just introducing himself, but that was a story.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, good.
So it's sort of similar to the Effigy Incubator.
Yeah, that's just what I was thinking.
You get a little nugget of story, little background on Thelmond. And
except this is 7 weeks and not 12 months.
Yes.
That is a slight difference.
So
very, very slight. Yes.
All right. So we got 4 new pieces of Moonstone Jewelry. We have a Moonstone amulet, a Moonstone bracelet, a Moonstone necklace, and the Moonstone ring, which can be enchanted with the Dragonstone enchant spell. And the ring turns into a ring of imbuing, which gives you 10% additional runes when rune crafting. I see this being useful for soul runes and the necromancy runes because you produce those in such high numbers.
Very useful for irons as well.
Yeah, and
ring
of course
slot wasn't used previously, was it?
No,
for rune crafting.
No, I don't think so.
And of course the elemental runes too.
Yep.
If you're crafting those,
all of it.
So that's a fun one. Bracelet gives you unlimited teleports to the Hanging Gardens, Haunt on the Hill, and the Reflection Pool. The last one, of course, is where Felipe is.
Clues. Yep. This is for clues.
Clues and for farming.
The mushroom, yes.
Mushroom patch. Yep.
I'm a bad farmer. I haven't planted anything there yet.
That's fine. We forgive you.
You got to get your shrooms. You need your shrooms, Shane.
When did shrooms become important? Was it just POF?
Yeah, I think so.
The 70s, I would argue.
Not wrong.
And then we have the Alteration Necklace, which increases the power of Alteration Glyphs by 20% multiplicatively during Necromancy rituals. This is the star of the show for me.
This was going to get nerfed.
You think it's going to be nerfed?
I think the only way it won't get nerfed is if people don't draw attention to it. I think that is very powerful. It's so powerful.
Yeah, it is pretty nice. I should emphasize, like you mentioned in the notes that it increases multiplicatively. It adds to the it adds to the effect additively, and then that effect is multiplicative to whatever you're doing. So if you're doing alteration glyphs, your attraction can go from 700 to 820. It just adds 20 to each glyph.
Which is amazing when you think about that. Also amazing for Multiply 3.
Yep. Yeah, Multiply is
for
the big
resources
one right here, I think.
And that's actually part of why I don't think this is going to be nerfed, because they've hinted that there's going to be a ritual for generating ectoplasm.
Some way to generate more ectoplasm. You think this is part of the solution?
I think this is part of the solution.
Yeah, I think a direct ectoplasm ritual is possible. I don't think it's for sure, but they might add maybe like an alteration glyph. It's like,
is there really even that much of a shortage of ectoplasm? Like, I've never had that as a problem.
I haven't either, but I also haven't been PVMing very much lately. I have definitely heard people complaining about it, and Jagex has mentioned it on live streams.
They complain they're using necromancy too much. They complain they're using necromancy too little. No.
Yeah. Well, what do they say? You can please some of the people some of the time, and all of the Reddit none of the time. Any of the Reddit none of the time.
I like that saying. Yeah.
And you know, Tanis, you thought that this one was not the highlight, whereas I think the rest of us think this one is the highlight.
That's the one I made.
Yeah, that's the one I made first.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, to me, part of that is just because a combat skill should be combat. So when I was looking at the jewelry, I was like, oh, well, there's something that boosts the conjure, so that's kind of cool. But I mean, I guess whether I like it or not, the way that you train necromancy is through rituals.
Yeah.
So I slept on the alteration ring, but
that's okay. It's okay.
Well, and this is definitely not going to unseat rituals as the XP for Necromancy. Like, this just makes that worse.
Yeah.
Or better, depending on how you look at it.
Also, fun note, you use an unsold bar as the metal for this, too. So that's neat.
Just a basic unsold bar.
Yeah.
Which you can buy from Thalmond, but not this week.
Yeah, we also have the Conjurer's Raising Amulet, which increases basic attack damage of spirits by 5%, and it gives a 44 Necromancy damage boost, which is just a hair less than the Amulet of Souls. So
yeah, it's the same tier as the upgraded Ziliana amulets.
So, in my view, then, this kind of lands at a place where you don't have an EOF, you don't want to use Hydrix charges, you do want to rely on your Conjurers. This is the one you use.
This might be perfectly fine to AFK Abyssal Savages.
Exactly, something like that.
Yeah, I was clicking around PVME, and it seems like the consensus there is it's good for mid-level players and Iron players, and for places where you don't want to use EOF or Amulet of Souls.
Right.
Otherwise, or Salve Amulet.
Right.
Or Salve
pretty
Amulet.
Great for something that just requires a crafting level and you did a quest, a small quest.
Yeah.
And that's what I was going to say about this, is that if you're PVMing with Necromancy, you're using an EOF, or if you're fighting undead, you're using the Salve.
Yep.
So there's that.
Yeah, more established.
And that's I think that's the story behind the jewelry here, is that they're make once, they don't degrade, and you get them you get the first one from just doing this quest. And then you get to basically pick which one you want. You can, of course, buy on the GE, or you can wait for the shop to come back and to get the other ones. But it's a good reward space, and I like this for where it lands. And we said mid-level, but in all honesty, this works for me too.
Yeah,
there's room for it. Yeah.
So.
And there's room for this reward space to be expanded in the future,
and that's
like kind of hinted in some dialogue that there will be more variants of Moonstone
with the former master crafter who you have to talk to learn how to form these gems. Yep. And you know what was funny about this is that it's just like the crafting guild. You have to wear a brown apron to go talk to him.
Yeah, that was funny.
And if you have a cosmetic override and you put the brown apron on, he doesn't count it. He wants to see that brown apron.
Yep, he is an old timer. Yeah, that was
good interaction. Yeah.
It was cute. I think it's probably having to take off the cosmetic override is probably just a shade over the line into annoying, but it's a one-time thing, so whatever.
No, I think they were definitely kicking things old school on that, and you're just making fun of people because who doesn't have a cosmetic override on, right?
Oh, exactly.
I didn't.
Oh, you didn't?
Wow.
I've actually had cosmetic overrides off since Necromancy launched. I like looking at the armor.
Oh, okay.
Fair.
I wanted to see myself upgrade, and I just kind of left them off. But
nice. Which one do you use? Do you use the tank or the power?
The power.
Yeah.
I'm totally lying right now. I totally used the override to put the Vorkath versions of the weapons on.
Right.
But that's the weapons. That's fine.
Yeah, that's not you. That's not torso. Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like the blues and whatnot on the tier 90 tank armor.
Yeah.
That's why I asked.
Yeah. So. I don't think I've ever used a tank armor.
No, I haven't even made it yet, but I don't like how it looks. I'm getting there. I'm getting there.
That trim comp wreck, Shane. Come on.
No, we're not trimming. We're not trimming. We're not trimming.
Ever?
I will go for it when I have less than 30 tasks left.
Okay.
I'm not gonna, go for it with the 2 pages and a bit that are left right now. But, okay. So, Tanis, Conjurers, Amulet, still your favorite?
Well, yeah, it is for me.
Okay, and everybody else is the Alteration Necklace then?
No, and it might be better over time because if they released more gear that.
Because I forget what he was talking
Conjurers.
about. It was like the Blood Moon. The Blood Moonstone, the Cloudy
Moonstone, Ice Moonstone.
Yeah. With Vorkath, we got an incantation to buff Skeleton, so if they keep releasing stuff that buffs Conjurers, maybe that amulet like gets better with the you really want that extra conjure damage. Maybe that's giving you more healing. Maybe that's giving you more procs or something. So like maybe something to watch.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good point. Very good point. Okay. So that's the Moonstone Jewelry former master crafter. Overall, I feel like Housing a Parliament was a good fun quest discussion here. So before we get on to some of the other necromancy changes this week, I'm going to do our Patreon spot because time got away from me. So this week I'd like to thank Alvaro L, Amos Reed, Andrew C, Arvid Zell, Chubura, Daniel W, Dominic R, Drama Free, Duramax, Free Milk, Guy Lafleur, Jacob G, Jade Gizmo, Jason S, Jeebus, Jesse W, Kesky, Lemon Lodge, Ling01, Luminos, Nate the Great, Pernasius, Renhawk, Ricky A, Rippeth, Runestar, Samuel FL, Scott DS, Shirt Pants, The Naked Captain, The Dabbing Goat, Tim, Tom V, Ukulele Steve, and Zant. Thank you, everybody, for your support. It truly means the world to us, and if you want to join all of these people, head on over to patreon.com/RSBANB and you can support the podcast for as little as $1 a month. And when doing that, you get access to an entire catalog of bonus episodes of RSBANB Update that we call our monthly bits. They're monthly one-shot episodes that focus on one specific topic or another. And with that, what we do is we ask the community what they'd like us to talk about. Then we dive deep into it. This past month's one was on farming, which, shocker. We had not done a monthly bit on farming before, so you guys jumped at the chance when that was put up on the poll. I'm not sure what next month's are gonna entail. I have an idea on that, but maybe I'll float that at the round table next week or something to that effect. But the poll will definitely be up by then. But if you guys want access to all those bonus shows, discussion on farming, our world famous tier list, so much more, just head on over to patreon.com/RSBANB. We also do have the VIP tier, where for $3 a month, you get a rank on Discord, chat channel access, as well as high-quality stereo versions of the show, and a shout-out on the podcast at the start of the month. And if you want to give the ultimate gift, we do have a tier where you get access to the clips that we use to make the clip show, and a Christmas card at the end of the year for our ultimate thanks. And, of course, we have the wonderful experienced tier Patreon members for whom Rippeth had a live Q&A this week. Right now that tier is sold out, but definitely watch that space as we look to do our next quarterly thing for the experienced tier people. But patreon.com/RSBANB. Thanks so much, everyone. Thanks. All right. Also this week, in addition to the quest and the new Moonstone Jewelry, we have some changes to the way protection glyphs work. Which was overdue, because they were practically useless, weren't they?
More than practically.
And
they were harmful to use.
Yeah, they were, because the way it worked is that soul attraction, higher that is, meant you got more random events, which means of course you get more XP. And the sense is that these were left over from before Necromancy's launch, when if you didn't deal with the random events, you would actively be harmed by them. Which, I mean, you can see why they removed that, and didn't
that wouldn't have been liked.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been fun, I don't think, based on how some of these random events there were. So
definitely,
there might have been like a point where like you try to get your soul attraction to 0 to like make it ultimately AFK. Whereas, I mean, in that effect, maybe these new effects like help you like get more AFK. So like it's kind of in the same spirit.
Maybe, but I don't know if I've ever actually heard of anybody doing that for necromancy training.
No, not with the current system, because there's no downside to having soul attraction.
Yeah,
AFK. Yeah, I mean, if you're looking for AFK necromancy training, you're going to be going to Abyssal Savages or Abyssal Demons or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're not doing rituals.
That too, yeah.
So what they did...
yeah.
Go ahead, Everett.
I was going to say, but maybe what they implemented here would make some like semi-AFK option more appealing.
Yeah,
maybe.
Fair enough. Okay. Protection 1 increases duration of ritual disturbances by 20% and soul attraction by 20%. Protection 2 brings that up to 40 and 40, and Protection 3 brings that up to 60 and 60.
So they last longer.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you still do get some soul attraction there, though not as much as you do with the attraction glyphs.
Yeah. It's the same amount as multiply, I think.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
I am curious if anyone here does feel like disturbances would be are more doable with like 20, 40, 60%.
You know, I got used to doing them as they are. I do not see myself using these.
I don't either, but I will say I hate the defile.
That one I always feel like I have a chance of like if I don't do the right thing on the one.
I feel like
purple,
the confusing thing,
it could be gone.
The confusing thing about the defile is that you might not necessarily know when to click, and if you click too much,
right,
it's not good either.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, or if you click at the wrong time in the animation. So I think it's good for those. I still probably wouldn't use them, but that's more for
maybe in the future we get other rituals, other disturbances, and
maybe
changes.
Maybe
that's possible.
Maybe that's actually something to keep in mind, because they did say that, you know, expansion wise down the road there was options to, you know, have other soul vessels and therefore other ritual sites with it.
Yeah. And recently they were putting posts on Reddit about like, what do you want to see out of a skilling necromancy update?
So what if there was a set of necromancy things that were like skill related, kind of like the lunar stuff was for magic?
Like lunar spell. Oh yeah.
Like a set of incantations that are skilling.
Yeah, skilling incantations.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like the way to build off of skilling necromancy is you start at rituals and see where you go from there, because that's like the jumping off point,
right? And
so things come off that.
And we said, and you said this at Tanis in the discussion about the jewelry, is that it's just so weird that you have a combat skill that is trained with a skilling method as the meta.
Yeah, that's just always fell off to me.
Mm-hmm. Maybe one day it can become a true skilling method for you.
Maybe.
And be a hybrid skill like what magic sort of is.
What was the meta for Magic Training Forever? Is the teleport spells?
Yeah, teleport Camelot. Yeah.
It's still the meta in old school here today. It's still the meta in old school.
See, it's classically RuneScape. You train your combat skills with skilling.
You teleport to Camelot, and in between that teleport, you cast a High Alchemy.
That's a lot. That's a lot to do.
Maximum sweat. Oh man.
That's some Mountain Dew at 11 p.m. My parents aren't here sort of activity.
Which we were talking in pre-show, and this is one of the benefits the experienced here. Patreon people get to just piggyback on that. We got a Q&A with us, and Avernick, you said that you did have some of those moments back in the day.
Oh yeah, that's the only way I was getting 9-9 thieving in high school. It was like, oh, I got the weekend, no one's home, we're going to go for it. Caffeine.
Mainline caffeine. Yeah.
Great choices.
But also this week they did rebalance several of the low-level critters that were harder to kill than intended with the Necromancy Balance Pass. So, for example, Turoths have been changed to melee monsters and now have 4,200 HP instead of 9,850, and their max hit has been dropped to 960 from 1140. And they also up the XP on cutting onyxes so that it's now consistent with what Moonstone is. So if you really wanted to, train some of that crafting, this double XP, buy those onyxes. Though that's like just throwing money away, I think. But
yeah, well,
they also updated the boat tours in to make it so that Raziel's Citadel won't be clipped out of sight. And they changed some of the coordinates during the tour to avoid clipping and unnecessary travel. And you can redo the tours, of course. But that's pretty much it for the patch notes this week that was here. And it was interesting to see that the quest was actually included as part of the patch notes, as was the Thalman stuff and the jewelry. So, I guess we should also mention the new Miso pet appearance for those who have done 1,000 Raziel kills that turns it into looking like a ghost. So there's that too. But
a lot of your blue little ghost kitty.
Yep.
Do you really think you can save them?
Oh boy, I'm gonna get there one day. I'm still, by the way, a month and a half into the year and dry at Raziel.
Wow.
I've been going a few times a week, and I'm north of 750 kills at this point.
Damn.
Wow.
But all right, let's get into the other thing where the landmine defusal kit is needed.
Oh no.
Oh boy.
Jagex has been sold from Carlyle to CVC Capital Partners and Haveli Investments. The news came out on February 9th. And the rumored sum of money is about 900 million Great British pounds, which we were absolutely scratching our heads over that valuation.
Yeah, it makes no sense to me.
It's so much higher than what Carlisle got it for.
Well, I mean, I guess that's kind of Carlisle's hope, right? Is
that's the plan, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's their goal, is you buy it and then you sell it higher down the road. But I mean, I don't know much about how this stuff works. I do have a business background, but more in the marketing side, less in the finance. I can't figure where this number is coming from. Now, granted, like, we don't have the most up-to-date financials for Jagex. The most recent we have is their fiscal 21 filings. So they're 2 years out of date.
22 hasn't been posted yet?
No, they're actually, when you look them up on the Companies House website, there's actually a big red notice saying you're overdue for the 22 filings. So that's not great. But based on the 21 filings, like, this is like a 7x multiple over their 21 revenue. It's a 16.5 over their earnings before interest.
Yeah, because those normally came out in like September.
They're supposed to be filed by December of the year before, or the year after. So they were supposed to file their 2022s no later than a month and a half ago, and they didn't for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Maybe it has something to do with that they're doing publishing now. Maybe there's stuff we don't know in the pipeline. I don't know.
It could be. They did also in 2021, or not in 2021, in 2022, I think, or 23, they did acquire a couple of companies.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, it's possible that there's more stuff going on
that could have added some value there, and like, it's impossible, like you said, to know until we see some numbers on that. So if we don't even have 22 yet, and we don't have 23 yet, well, then that tells a story kind of where we're at right now, and where things land on this.
Yeah.
So CEO Phil Mansell, otherwise known as Mod Pips, had two statements, one to players and one to the business community on this. First, the business one, he said that Jagex has transformed significantly in the recent years, thanks to the hard work of our entire team, as well as the insight and expertise we have leveraged through our partnership at Carlyle. We are delighted to bring CVC and Haveli in as our new strategic partners for the next stage of Jagex's journey. Then we get to the one that was put out to the RuneScape communities. He says, I reassure you of our commitment to our games and you, our communities. We will not compromise the integrity of our games, and there are no intentions of changing our games' business models. Players will remain at the heart of what we do, and we will continue to live the values that make these worlds iconic and unique. If anything, that drives us to want to do better for our players, to do more to grow the communities and strengthen the universe of RuneScape further. There are some fantastic adventures ahead, and the community is going to be a huge part of that journey. So this is the interesting part about this here, where there are no intentions of changing our game's business models.
I mean, I want to believe that this is true, but I think it's worth pointing out that at this point, this tells us nothing, because sale, this isn't even final. Like, this is still pending regulatory approval, and even without that, these corporate processes can take months to finalize. So we're still a long ways out from CVC or Haveli having direct input over operations.
Yeah. And, I just think it's interesting specifically about the game's business model, because the last time we saw what was mentioned there is that, obviously there were more people playing old school, but the bulk of the money, just a little bit north of 50%, came from the RS3 side due to the monetization of that. And that number, the OS RS3 boundary in the 22 and 23 financials, will be the interesting thing to look at to see, is the game pulling more in subscriptions, or is the game pulling more in the monetization from all of the various things that they have done with RS3 over the last 2 years.
Yeah, I agree, because I remember looking over the 21 statements, and there was something in there, I think in Mod Pips' statement in that document about how OSRS's revenue actually fell in fiscal 21. So it will be interesting to see how that has evolved over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think the thing I want to send home on this one to the community, our listeners, and anybody who might be coming across this, is that just because the company changes ownership doesn't mean the sky is going to fall. Doesn't mean RuneScape's going to disappear. Doesn't mean old school's going to disappear. Doesn't mean Jagex is going to disappear. Like you said, Zerdones, these things take a while to iron their way out. That by the time CVC and Haveli start having input on this, it'll be a while down the track. And the hope, I think, for everybody is, and based on the numerous acquisitions and moving around we've seen, is that hopefully it'll be can just continue to be business as usual from our perspective, at least.
Yeah, I mean they're acquiring an established team, an established product. They're not acquiring it to to trash it, right? Like they're acquiring it to
make
have
money
it
with
and grow it. Yeah.
Well, I will say, from a devil's advocate standpoint, there are a lot of horror stories of private equity firms buying up companies
and that's actually
gutting them.
And that's exactly something that we need to be aware of with this, is that the thing that myself and others that I was talking to, when Carlyle picked them up, is that what was happening with that is that was a golden opportunity, if you would, because if the company really took off, getting acquired by somebody like Carlyle, that's the step before doing an IPO and going public. Now, obviously, that didn't happen. So what history tells us from looking at the other companies, one of two things typically happen with that, is the companies continue to get passed around between various VC firms, as we saw here, or like you said, Avernick, that in some cases like this, companies get bought to get picked apart and sell off one thing or another. Which, like I said, I don't think that's going to happen here.
Well, first they get loaded up with debt so they can run out the back door with all the money.
Well, that too. I don't think Jagex is at that point. Based on what we know, Jagex is still solidly profitable.
Yeah. And I think a different line in this statement from Mod Pips, strengthen the universe of RuneScape, also kind of points to some of the initiatives they've put towards lately to grow more the IP of RuneScape versus like the specific games. Like they're putting out the first of 3 books in May, and I'm getting my board game soon, in a week. That's finally coming out, and the cookbook, and I feel like they're
open world survival game.
Yep, and the past year or two, it seems like they take, or maybe even more. We don't even know. Like they're taking more interest in building it out as a intellectual property versus just the games, which is, I think, they're behind the ball compared to a lot of their analogous games. In that, like World of Warcraft is far and beyond, way past that, or even like League of Legends.
And let's be honest, I feel like Jagex as a company is the RuneScape company, and they can publish other games, and that's all fine and well. But I think when it comes to IP that Jagex is going to own, it's going to be the RuneScape IP, because they tried other things and they didn't really take off.
Yeah, it's they've never managed to diversify beyond the RuneScape IP, not for lack of trying.
And we live in an age where IP means a hell of a lot. So I think they're trying to capitalize.
It just takes getting noticed by the right person, at Disney, and you have a reality show set in Fort 4 and 3.
The right Hollywood executive.
Wouldn't that be something like a reality show set in Fort 4 and 3 in the vein of the Kardashians?
Oh God, that's a very different way of thinking. I was thinking like something like an Arcane
show, yeah,
like Arcane on Netflix, something like that. Like a very
keeping up with the Carnelians.
There we go.
Oh no.
Oh
goodness.
Oh, that's too funny. Anyways, joking aside, through line of this, if you're a RuneScape player, don't worry, the game's not going anywhere. And, should something change, we'll be the first ones to let you know, probably, based on what we see.
Yep.
Alrighty. Let's start closing this one out then. Zerdones, you want to start us off with our achievables?
Yeah, so having an excellent Valentine's Day on February 14th, Waffens got 99 prayer. And then on February 13th, Hephaesto 5 got 99 necromancy.
Jamandi 52 got 120 defense on February 13th. And Keski got 120 necromancy on February 13th as well.
Nicely done. Then after that, Zerdones, you're here. You got 120 necromancy on February 12th.
I did.
Ooh.
I did.
Jam Andy 52 is also in there on the 11th with 120 necromancy, and Nyard got 99 necromancy on the 10th.
Cool. And then we have Xenon Ray with 120 necromancy on the 10th, and Mage Quest with 99 mining on the 9th. Must be all these 120 necromancies for the Master Quest requirement, huh?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. In any case, congratulations, everybody. And Tannis and I will definitely have somebody on next week to help us with the double XP storm that's to come.
Yeah, it was calm before the storm. Definitely.
All right. If you do want to appear on the podcast, head on over to update.show/help. And if you have any idea of what you might like to talk about, tell us what kind of player you are. If you have a specific idea for a piece of content that you'd like to appear on, or maybe you just might think you'd make the show interesting, fill out the form at update.show/help. We look forward to hearing from you, and we tend to get through these responses on the help wanted form pretty quickly. So update.show/help. All right, Zerdones, what are we learning today?
Yeah, so I've got a pick of the week that sort of overlaps with tech news. RPG Maker XP is free on Steam until February 19th. So this is a time limited offer. This will be going live on the 17th. You have, on the 16th. You have this weekend from when I'm speaking to pick it up, and then it will no longer be free. So RPG Maker is it's a game engine for making, or a game creation utility for making top-down RPGs in like the NES and the Super Nintendo style. So think like Earthbound, the early Final Fantasies, Dragon Quest, that kind of thing. It also, another thing that is available for it, despite Nintendo's best efforts, is the Pokemon Essentials fan pack, which is a toolkit and asset pack for making Pokemon fan games. So if you're a Pokemon fan, RPG Maker XP is your opportunity to make your own version of the game. So I wanted this to be my pick because I was on the show a couple of weeks ago, and I gave Game Maker as my pick of the week because that also became free.
Yeah.
And RPG Maker is a similar kind of tool to Game Maker, but it's a little bit earlier in the degree of knowledge that you need to have in order to work with it.
Right. Okay.
What's good about RPG Maker is it has a lot of graphical utilities to it. You do a lot of sort of drag and dropping of assets, and there's a lot of especially for XP, which was originally released in 2005. There's a lot of plugins that you can use, so you can get a good way into making a game without to know too much code, but you do have access to the code if you want to. So, for example, like friend of the show, Sirion, RPG Maker is what got him into game dev. He started out making games in RPG Maker, just dragging and dropping, and then he learned how to edit the code, and now he is making games. So it's a great on-ramp into... If you're interested in making games, this is a great way to get your foot in the door.
Yeah, I love it when these sorts of things crop up, because I think anything, that opens the door for people who, want to make games, even, people in general who want to learn how to code and program and, take it one step up and go that, computer science route, so to speak, on that. Anything that does that, I think, is a good thing. And of course, there's caveats along the way. Like, you don't want to necessarily... pick up bad habits or whatnot, but that's something you can self-correct later down the road. But this along with Game Maker, have been two that have always been on my radar as well, and that have always come up in my circles surrounding this too. So I can 100% endorse this as well as being a good pick of the week. And fun fact, everybody can run it because it's got for its recommended system requirements, a PC with a 1.5 gigahertz Intel Pentium 4 processor, 256 megs of RAM, 500 megs of disk space, and 1024 by 768 screen size.
Yeah, this version of RPG Maker originally released in 2005, so this is quite an old version, which is good in some ways because it means it's very stable and there's a lot of community support. Another thing that I should note about this is there are quite a lot of versions of RPG Maker, and I confess I don't know all the differences between them, but if you do want one that's a little bit more recent, they're all on sale on Steam up to 90% off.
Right.
Obviously, the more recent ones are more expensive, but they're still, I think even the most recent one is still like 50% off.
And I'm betting this RPG Maker XP version does run on Windows 11.
I assume. I would think so. I would think so.
That's the wonderful thing about Windows. You're really not 100% host unless you're trying to run 16-bit.
The part of the reason I brought up Pokemon Essentials is because I know a couple of people who are making Pokemon fan games, and they're doing that like right now. So it's working on their machine, their computers
right now. So, like as we're right now as we're talking.
Well, I don't know as we're recording because it would be quite late for them, but they are doing it on their computers in the year of our Lord 2024. So,
all right, fair enough. Averdick, you ever dabble in any of this kind of stuff?
I haven't, and. Possibly, sometimes I'm like, what would my life be like if I had? But
yeah,
no, I haven't, and this is always be a cool thing to pick up as a hobby. So
yeah, and it's just one step along the way, to making RuneScape. Of course, this is not gonna,
we could all do it.
Get you a job somewhere right away. But
you could. Well, with RPG Maker, you could make a RuneScape demake. Demakes are all the rage these days.
What does that stand for?
It doesn't stand for anything. It's where you recreate a game in a lower, quote unquote, lower fidelity graphical style.
Oh, okay.
So an example that springs to mind is Mass Effect, the BioWare developed AAA 3D cover shooter. Someone made into they made a demake of it into a Final Fantasy style turn-based top-down RPG.
Wow.
And it changes the gameplay style, but it's the same game. It's the same story, the same plot. It's just a different kind of gameplay mode.
Nice. Nice. Alrighty. What have we been doing on RS? Let's start with you, Tanis.
Prepping for double XP, so been buying some fletching supplies here and there and making fletching supplies here and there. And doing the same thing with
you gonna have enough for 120?
Probably not. I mean, it's not like I'm gonna do math to figure out how much that's gonna be. No, I'm just gonna get a big pile of shit and then do it until it comes, and hopefully I'll get close. See big numbers.
All right, sounds
That's what
good.
we're going for. Yeah.
I guess we'll touch in with that next week and at the round table, see where things land on that. Zerdones?
Well, I got 120 Necromancy, obviously.
Yeah.
I took the time after doing I saved it. I could have gotten it this week or last weekend, but I wanted to hold off until the quest because I knew there were some changes coming I figured there would be some changes there that I would want to wait for, and I was right. So I did some Necromancy after the quest to see if I could get another Moonstone, but no such luck. But other than that, like I said last week, I've mostly been playing other games. Recently, I've been playing Just Cause 2, which is a lot of fun if you just like causing random mayhem.
Good classic.
Yeah, it's a good simulator for that sort of thing, isn't it?
Yeah, it's one of the great kind of screw around random chaos simulator
It's like
games.
Sandbox, but with a little bit of story to it, kind of. Mm-hmm. Loose story.
A very, very token amount of story. It's mostly... I seem to remember when it first came out, it was quite remarkable because it had an absolutely enormous map. This giant sandbox map that's like 40 kilometers long on each side. And it takes forever to traverse, which is kind of annoying, but is also like kind of cool.
Yeah, and you know, when you think about it, they don't really make games like that anymore, do they?
Well, there's a lot of reasons for that. Like the graphics, the graphical fidelity is such now that it's just too resource intensive.
Fair.
You can't make games that big anymore. The hardware won't allow it at the hyper realistic graphics that people expect in AAA games now.
Sounds good. Avernick?
Until this week, I would have said I've not been playing the game much, so I'm playing Baldur's Gate. But because I got my Master Quest cape ripped from me, that is now what I've been doing and what I will continue to be doing. I went into the quest at 105 Necromancy, so I have a bit of a way to go.
You can do that on double XP.
I hope I find the time.
Yeah.
Double XP. Don't forget your weekly penguins. 2 penguins a week. 2 rounds of penguins a week.
And
yep.
And or you could
Earl Invasion.
You could pull one of those Mountain Dew weekends again.
just like the old days.
Yeah.
Party
like it's 2009.
I did have plans this coming weekend, and they got canceled literally today. So I mean, my schedule's not free.
You could do you could do a little bit of it, but maybe not an all-nighter, right?
Depends on how much Adderall you got.
Who would care, really, the people I live with?
Yeah.
There you go.
You're an adult. You can make decisions like this.
You can make adult decisions.
Yeah. Perfectly reasonable adult decisions.
And Jagex would want you to.
You guys are making it sound very tempting.
I want you to join me on that ritual platform with a 120 Necromancy cape.
To stand right on top of each other and never see each other.
Yeah. But as for me, I sampled the rings and such, as I as well mentioned, have been doing weekly trips to Raziel, and we're still too short on the collection log. I promised I'd never complain about something like that. So don't take this as complaining. Don't take this as complaining. But there's that. And, I'm going to get 120 Necromancy here on double XP. I'm 119 right now, so it's not too far away to push. And aside from that, I am going to literally make a wheel with a bunch of skills on it, except Dungeoneering and Slayer for the skill pier, and roll a dice, and that'll be what I train on the skill pier.
Fun. Yeah. Except Dungeoneering. I hear you.
Yeah, I'm waiting for the hole for that, and dummies and whatnot. But, fun fact, I'll also just do a bit of an old school update as well. Closing in on 75 farming there, and we got the ability on old school this week to plant seeds without using a seed dibber.
Ooh.
And it's not with a tool belt. It's with barbarian farming.
That's a thing?
Yep.
Oh, so it's an unlock. Okay.
Yeah, it's an unlock. That's how they managed to
they sell it,
to pull that in, because the community is very averse to the tool belt, would you believe it or not?
But they put all of the required tools next to where you need them for every update ever now.
Right.
So,
yeah.
It's a question of, is it too much, that sort of thing. So, I don't know. It's always just fun watching, the two communities in parallel on that sort of thing. So, but nonetheless, you can hear more about barbarian farming and some changes to the wood cutting over there on the old school show, if that's your beat, or you just want to hear what that version of the game is up to. Those ones drop on Sundays. Update.show/OS. But does anybody have anything else here before we depart and say our farewells?
No, sir.
No.
I don't think so.
No, sounds good. Well, with that being said, we'll be back next week for another episode of RSBANDB Update. In the meantime, if you want the podcast delivered automatically to you, the best way to do that is to subscribe. Or on all the podcast listeners out there, Apple, Spotify, Google, Pocket Casts, and more, update.show/subscribe. And, of course, we're also on YouTube at youtube.com/RSBANDB. That's where we post the video versions of the show. And, of course, if you're a fan, like and subscribe. Greatly helps the channel out, or if you just found the episode interesting. So, see you next week, everybody. Take care.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.